Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to welcome everybody out this evening to the American Fork City Council meeting on this November 28th of the year 2023. Appreciate you being here, really do. We'd like to excuse Councilmember Hunter, who will not be with us tonight. He has some attending to his family. We'll begin with a public hearing, and we are here to receive public comment on the declaration of vehicles to be surplused and disposed of. I believe there's 3 vehicles total. Don't get your hopes up that they're going to be able to be driven away, but they are. There is a process that we have to formally go through to give them up to people that might bid on them in the state and to take them away. So, here to hear public comment on these vehicles. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and we'll move on to the regular session. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, after which we'll have an invocation by Councilmember Shelton, and then I will conduct the roll call. If everybody please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for the opportunity we have to be gathered together as a community and as a council. We're grateful, Father, for the freedom and privilege it is to be able to assemble and to be able to have the authority to govern ourselves. We're grateful, Father, for those who have sacrificed so much to be able to protect that freedom and make it a possibility. We pray that we'll be able to understand such responsibility and be able to sincerely discuss matters that involve and have an impact upon the residents. We pray that they may know of our deep dedication to serve in the best of capacity as our elected officials. And these things we ask and pray for in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Yeah. Now conduct the roll call. Councilmember Hunter, I mentioned, is absent. Councilmember Shelton? Here. Councilmember Barnes? Here. Councilmember Carroll?
Here.
Councilmember Taylor? Here. Okay, item number 2 is we have a presentation of the GFOA Distinguished Achievement of Excellence in Financial Reporting. And we have Mr. Brandon Nelson. He's the Orem City Finance Director who will present this award. Brandon, if you can please come forward.
Thank you, Mayor Frost. Council members. As mentioned, my name is Brandon Nelson. I am the Finance Director for Orem City. I am also on the Utah Government Finance Officers Association Board, and that is associated with the National Government Finance Officers Association. Every year, municipalities throughout the United States and Canada have the opportunity to present their annual financial report to the Government Finance Officers Association to have it reviewed and to see if they meet the criteria that has been set for this achievement in financial reporting. I'm pleased to announce that the City of American Fork has submitted that report and has received notification of the receiving the award. So I'd like to read this news release that the GFOA sends out. The Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada has awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting to the City of American Fork for its annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2022. The report has been judged by an impartial panel to meet the high standards of the program, which includes demonstrating a constructive spirit of full disclosure to clearly communicate its financial story and motivate potential users and user groups to read the report. I'm sure all of you will now read the report in full, right? Yes. I would suggest at a minimum that there's usually a transmittal letter at the very beginning of the report, as well as what's called a management discussion and analysis. And those are two pretty succinct pieces of the document that are very helpful in understanding all of the other information in there without having to go and read through all of the numbers and everything like that. So I'd highly recommend that. The Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in the area of governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by a government and its management, and namely Anna Montoya and her team of accountants that put this report together. So at this time, I would love to present this Certificate of Achievement to Anna and the city, and at this time.
Thank you. Mayor, would you mind if I said just a couple words?
Absolutely, David.
Anna does such a fantastic job for our city and works very, very hard to make sure that we are doing what we need to do as a city to be financially stable and to keep our accounting and our finances in order. She does a great job every year through our budget process and does a great job through the audit process, and it seems like we just go from one thing to the other with all of the workload that's on her plate. And she manages that so well, and I'm just so impressed with that. And she doesn't like accolades. She doesn't really want to be up in front, but she deserves to be up in front for all of the good hard work that she does. And I just want to say I appreciate her so much.
Okay, thank you, David. Now you'll get to all of us before we're done here, so don't leave. Okay, we'll now move on to item number 3, which is a public comment period. Anybody would like to address the mayor, the council, the senior staff, we'd invite you to come forward at this time. We'd ask you to keep your comments to 2 minutes. And I have 2 that have submitted in paper, but that we're not limited to just these 2. But we'll start with these 2. We'll first have Elizabeth Phelan come forward. And you know what, Liz, let's turn that around. I should have known to do that.
You see a lot of that. My name is Elizabeth Phelan. I am here on behalf of action items 2 and 3 and 4B. I just wanted to offer any questions be answered if needed by the council or the mayor.
You know, I don't have any at this time, but I am happy. Are you going to stick around? Or do you
I'm
just-
going to be here,
Okay, so
just when they come up.
are you the applicant?
Yes,
Okay.
on 4B, and I'm the neighbor of 2 and 3.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, if there's questions as the applicant, we'll have you come forward at that time.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Now we'll have Jessica Cook come forward.
Hi, my name is Jessica Cook. I'm a resident of American Fork since 2000. We have a house at 186 South, 200 West here in American Fork. 200 South is undergoing construction right now. They're raising the road quite a bit, and we have a unique property where our lot is L-shaped. So we have an access to our backyard, which is about 3.5 feet lower than our front of our yard, which matches the road at the front. So we park our utility trailer, things like that, in the back, and that's what we use to get to our backyard. However, with the road construction, we're losing our access. They chose not to give us a driveway access, what we call a driveway access, where you don't have to go over the top of the curb. The problem is that it's a significant raise, that they're raising the road and that, so it's going to be hard to get the trailer up and over the curb. And so we're asking that we have somebody review it and see if we can get an access to our driveway, our back driveway. So we've talked to the construction workers, the superintendent and that, and they told us to come tonight. So we're here to see what we can do about getting access to our backyard.
Okay.
Could you
Jessica?
state your address one more time?
Yes, it's 186 South,
Okay.
200 West.
Okay.
And then I also have, I printed out a Google map, just kind of show what the L shape looks like. I don't know if I.
And why don't you give it to David? And Jessica, thank you for this paper. In this paper, we have the address. We have both you and Greg's phone numbers.
Yes.
We have your email. And David, I'm going to ask you to just kind of run point on this with staff and try to just work this out.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, is there anybody else who'd like to make public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public comment period and we'll move on to our city administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to start off, I think a big congratulations are in order for Clark Taylor and Tim Hawley and Ernie John for their election efforts, and they are going to be our new council members starting in 2024. We look forward to working with each of you, so congratulations to you, each of you. We had on Monday night, we had Santa Claus come to Robinson Park, and it was an absolute huge turnout. It was so great, and would just like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for all of the work that they did to prepare for that event and to provide for music and the stage and a lot of the setup and getting Santa there, and to our public safety department as well. I think Santa got lost, but the police department found him, brought him to the fire department. They got him on a fire truck, brought him into Robinson Park, and it just turned out so wonderful. It was a little chilly, but not as blizzardy as last year, and so it was just a great turnout. And we actually set several records. So there were actually a lot more people this year, probably double, and more than double. So it was a great turnout. So thank you to our public safety department, and thank you to our parks crews. The park looks great. It looks fantastic, and they spend so much time and effort just putting up lights. It takes a lot of work to make the park look good, and they have done such a fantastic job. So thanks to the Parks Department as well. This morning, the mayor and I had a chance to meet with Alpine School District, and Mayor, you may chime in a little bit on this as well. But we received a report from Superintendent Farnsworth, and he explained some of the things that were happening in Alpine School District, gave us some interesting data for American Fork. One thing that popped out to me was what a high graduation rate American Fork High School has. It's over 90%. And nationwide, that's most school districts don't graduate students at that level. And that goes to Alpine School District's ability and professionalism and the great teachers that we have in Alpine School District and the leadership. And so we really appreciate Superintendent Farnsworth and his efforts there. They are doing a study regarding the size of the district and what to do with the district in the future, whether there could be a split of the district. It's the largest district in Utah. It is there's a lot going on in Alpine School District, and it is growing fast, especially on the western side, so Lehigh, Saratoga, Eagle Mountain. And so the Alpine School District has contracted with a third party to come in and do a study. They're out of state. They did that on purpose so that they could have a very unbiased opinion and look at what's going on in the district. And that report will be given to the district in the February-March timeframe. So first part of next year, we'll probably get some more information on that. But just thought I'd report that. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you for that report, David. Okay, we'll now move on to the council reports. We'll start with Councilmember Shelton.
Thanks, Mayor. Only thing to report on, well, a couple of items. One, congratulations, Anna. well deserved. I've always really enjoyed working with you. I've always had a lot of great discussions with you, and appreciate your patience in working through some of the questions I've had, so thank you. And definitely award well deserved. Also, I didn't get a chance to say anything on veterans since I was gone last council meeting, but did just want to say that was a great week in our city, and great celebration. I talked with Mrs. Richards, and she said that the city has been just nothing but great through this whole process. So just a big thank you from me to everyone inside the city that helped make that possible. Many residents I talked to, and even those that aren't residents that came to celebrate or to pay their respects, really had a, it's the right word to use, great experience to be able to pay their respects to veterans. Last but not least, as far as business goes, I was able to attend the North Point Solid Waste meeting. They are moving forward with pursuing their own interlocal agreement versus special service. You've heard me talk a lot about it. Some cities have been a little bit slower in adopting and understanding what that means. So I anticipate probably in the first quarter that agreement coming before the city. And any questions you have, happy to address or answer those, but I see it being similar to dispatch that we had done, where it gives us more control. The biggest issue, and I think it's okay to put out there, we discussed it in open public meeting last time, was with former county commissioners, with the special sewer district, they had threatened to take control over it and not allow city-appointed representatives. That's mainly the main concern here, is that we would always maintain a seat, and it would kind of have us graduate away from the county model as we've grown past that, and adopt a model where we can be able to have control amongst the cities of where that district or that interlocal agreement would go, if that's the choosing. The other good news that came out of that meeting is that the district had adopted their budget, amended their budget. Their budget ends on December 31st. They are $676,000 over budget in the positive. And the reason for that is the state prison. They had to have somewhere to put all that concrete, and it went out to our landfill in Fairfield, and it had added a substantial amount of income. With that, the plan is to set that aside as they plan on doing major improvements to that facility and utilize that and reduce any need for bonding. Discussion came up if there would be a need to reduce the fee, because we also increased our fees this year in anticipation of that, and because that was mainly a one-time event, they don't anticipate another major facility like the prison with all that concrete needing to be housed somewhere like the landfill, that it wouldn't make sense to move forward on that. But happy to have any discussions. Don't know how far out the word will get, but that's good news that we were able to capitalize on the state needing to put that somewhere, and it will benefit our district quite a bit. That's all I have to report, Mayor.
Okay, thank you for that report. Councilmember Barnes.
Thank you, Mayor. The committees that I've been assigned to are in between sessions right now, so there isn't a lot going on there. Also want to acknowledge Anna and the staff and earning that award. Sometimes those things get unnoticed, but they really do have meaning to the people that understand what it means to be able to certify. I don't know how many years in a row now. We've done quite a few. But to do that year after year after year means two things to me. First and foremost, you have good staff who are qualified and are doing their job. And second thing is you're consistent. You've got policies and procedures that follow, and if you do those, it just kind of comes naturally, the outcome of that. And excuse me, the last thing is just to thank you to all the employees. This really is a great city for many, many reasons. And among those reasons, very prominent are the employees and their dedication to what they do. And hopefully we'll see a whole lot more of that this winter as they get a chance to push some snow around and do the other things. But like you said, the stuff they've done with the parks for the Christmas lights and And some of us complain because we have to do 1 or 2 windows in the front room or something like that. These guys have got 10,000 trees and a million lights and stuff, but they do a great job with that and everything else. And that's part of what makes American Fork such a wonderful place, is all these little pieces, and we talk about little pieces a lot in here. My wife has a habit of doing puzzles, and she used to do a lot of them on the table, but she's now doing them on her iPad. I don't know how many of you are doing that, but she's doing puzzles every day on her iPad, and I swear those pieces are about that big. I don't know how she can even see them. But the point of telling that is, when it's done, it's a neat little puzzle. And she did something the other day. Somehow somebody took pictures of grandsons and put them onto the puzzles, and Grandma got to put them together, and she had a good time doing that. Just as we as a city have a good time putting everything together, making it all work, and getting along. We don't have the problems a lot of cities do. And at Thanksgiving time, that's something to be grateful for. So enough from me. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that report. Councilmember Carroll.
Thank you, Mayor. I was able to attend the Chamber of Commerce yearly strategic planning retreat, and I did want to report on a couple of things that were really positive from that. First of all, we did have to increase our fees. It had been a number of years since we increased our membership levels. So last year the board had voted to increase those costs of membership, and we were worried that that would decrease the member numbers. But after a year of having those, it's showing that our numbers are actually higher than they were last year. We looked at the trend line. The trend line of the number of members is going up, as well as the level of amount of services that we are giving to the members, and the chamber has gone up as well. So both really good news to me. The other piece of information that I thought I would report on was that we, of course, look at the budget and look at where our financials are for the chamber, and we are saving money now instead of spending it all. At one point in time, in not too distant past, they were in the hole, and they have completely turned that around and now are in a much better financial position. So I'm really happy to see them thriving so well. And in that same vein, they're doing things like they did on Monday, the Holiday Magic Lighting Festival. I wasn't able to attend this year. Dang it, I didn't get a freeze. But I think it's the first one I've missed since we started doing it. But they are doing constantly those things to bring the community together. And often the chamber members are the ones contributing supplies, as well as coming there and greeting people. So it brings the businesses into the community, as well as bringing people downtown, where they then can be part of downtown and feel comfortable being there, and hopefully spend money and shop. So that's the intent of some of those things. Lastly, I also want to give Anna and her team congratulations. I know Anna doesn't want to have any accolades, so she always sits in the back. But we're really, really thankful for the work you do and the budget. I was actually talking to David just recently about how much good work you and him and your team do with the budget, and it's a huge part of the city running efficiently is having good budget, good financials. So thank you, and that's my report.
Thank you for that report. Councilmember Taylor.
Yes, I'll just follow along. For those of you who don't know Anna, she is the exemplar. She is the prize employee, and I hope this is just embarrassing her like crazy. She's also one of the most outspoken employees we have, which is just, it took some getting used to, but no, Anna, you can't say it enough, because this is the most critical. Short of public safety, managing our fiduciary responsibility is paramount as elected officials, and you make it so easy and so clear, and you're the best. So thank you very much. I also want to congratulate Tim and Ernie and express my thanks and gratitude for the support. Our city's,
I mean, this is home, and being able to get involved and make a difference. A lot of people during this course of this long, wasn't this like 8 months, this election, it seemed like? It talked about, why would you even want to do something like that? And, you know, this is where community action really happens. It's not on the state level, it's right here, where we're able to do things and see things take place. And the cooks come in and talk to us, and we'll be able to go and look into what we can do to take care. And it's just not lip service, it's stuff that's happening, and that's because of the incredible staff we have and the citizens. And so much appreciation for everything that way. For my committee reports, we had our November golf course meeting, and Fox Hollow is on its 3rd record year. They're doing extremely well and had tremendous support, made some great updates this year in terms of we without a doubt have the most used driving range in the county, probably right up there with the state, and they put that new cement barrier in all the way that allows people to hit from there and preserve our grass a little bit more. But that team up there, from the time they were given charge, JT and Riley and Stu and John, they just have absolutely done an incredible job. And I think, you know, you talk to most people, the most difficult course to get on in Utah is Fox Hollow. And looks great. They've just done a great job. And we're so pleased when they, you know, brought out the numbers and we went over budgets, because we're getting ready to pass a budget for next year. And just to see the growth year over year, and us to exceed that, them to exceed that rather, was just phenomenal. So I really appreciated that. And Mayor, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you for that report, Councilman Taylor. For the mayor's report, item number 6, I was absent last two weeks as well. I was ill, and I was one of the 3 people actually watching it on YouTube. So I actually went at one time, it took a big jump to 4. So I don't know who those people are, but I did watch it. But I just wanted to, if I could, just jump back in time a little bit, because I certainly was listening to your remarks, and I thought I want to express myself about some things that happened a couple of weeks ago that will forever be in my mind. I feel like, as Councilmember Taylor said, it's all about community. And as I think about, you know, what our community is, and we have such a rich heritage of being, you know, around quite a long time. I talked to some of the newer mayors, and they're just developing some of their community traits. But at American Fork, we have a pioneer heritage. And just in 1972, one of our community members went off to war, and he never returned. For 50 years, he didn't return. Let's just put it that way. And I saw this coming months ago as the family let me know that they had found the remains of Captain Jim Chipman, missing in action for 50 years. His plane was shot down. You probably know the story, so I won't rehearse the story, but to be in the moment, I'll take you along a little bit. I actually found a video that was professionally done in Honolulu when Captain Chipman was boarded on the plane that was coming to Salt Lake. And he was accompanied by a Marine. That same Marine met us in Salt Lake. He accompanied his remains to Salt Lake. And it was just touching to see the people in Honolulu that were boarding him, and the respect that they shown this great man. And in Salt Lake, I was able to go back as that plane came forward onto the tarmac. And at that point, it went right to the Marine Corps. We had about 10 or 12 of the Marine Corps there. That same gentleman that was accompanied, he came out, and there was no question who was in charge at that moment, and that was this major. And from that process, getting him into American Fork was something I'll never forget. I rode with the chief and David, and it was as if just time stood still on the freeway. We had cooperation from the Salt Lake Police, the Salt Lake City Police Department, Highway Patrol. It was as if they paved the way for a procession of probably about 15 to 18 vehicles and about 30 motorcycles. and they just made sure that nothing was obstructing our way. At that point, they just had lights on, and they were just the backlights. They did not want to alert and get people's too much attention in front of them. But when we turned onto the Main Street exit to enter our hometown, they asked me if we wanted to do lights, and I said, yes, let's light it up. Let's turn on the lights and let's turn on the sirens. And preceding that was our PD who shut down State Street. And it was there that I got emotional. In fact, we all got emotional in that truck. As 50 years later, on November 9th of this year, that the remains of this good man was brought into our city and escorted to the mortuary, and it was just, everybody stood still. We had people lining the street, and we got him to the mortuary, and it was our police department that got him inside of the mortuary. And then it was just a string of events. From that was the 9th to the 10th, being at our regular Veterans Day ceremony with young kids, where they learned about freedom. And there was a special emphasis on Captain Chipman and some of the history. And later on that night, at the Freedom Tree, which was planted in his honor in 1973, a tree that was just very small at the time. I would guess from the pictures and the photos that we have, it might have been 6 or 7 feet. His sons at the time were 18 months and 3 years old when he passed away, and when he was pronounced missing in action. And it was there that our VFW did a ceremony, and they buried at the base of this monument that's at the Freedom Tree the metal grommets of several retired flags that had been burned in an appropriate way, and then they saved the little grommets. And then the best way to, and proper way to use them in respect is to bury them. And they buried them at the foot of that memorial, of that tree. And then was Saturday, Memorial Day. And that will be an event that I'll never forget as well. And how this city, it took a lot of our emergency personnel, and that's just was the respect, is to bring out the assets of the city, the assets that are physical, and then the greatest asset we had was our residents that lined the streets with flags. And there was such a fitting tribute to him, and what a fitting day on Veterans Day to have that take place. And so I kind of felt like we just brought him home. And I've talked with Susan as well, and I feel like the family feels like American Fork City handled it just right. And so thanks to the staff. Thanks for everybody for their participation in that sacred chain of events. And now we're hoping, as I learned, his co-pilot, they're going to go back and they're going to look at the same area that they dug. They actually found a credit card of his, but they have not found remains. And I'd met his daughter, who flew out here from Texas to be a part of this, and we're really hoping that they'll find some remains of her dad. And that might just at least complete the story of this one plane that went down in Vietnam, and they can bring some closure to the family. But Captain Chipman, he's home now, and it just felt like the right place. The family said that they had an opportunity to go to Arlington, and they said they didn't think for a minute about it. They said they wanted to bring him home to American Fork. And so last night, as a part of, as we brought in Santa Claus, it was a joyous occasion. We took a minute because there was one tree that was on, red, white, and blue, and that was the Freedom Tree. And before the other lights just kind of blended in with that, I wanted to teach the kids. So we talked momentarily about Captain Chipman, and everybody had a moment of silence. And then we turned on the switch, and the festivities of the season began. And I felt again that sense of community of American Fork, and seeing the kids and their light, just the light in their faces and the smiles and their excitement to be around Mr. and Mrs. Claus. And so I'm just kind of on the eve of this Thanksgiving. I just feel incredibly grateful to live in a great city that has a sense of community. And I think it's important that people feel that. Now if I'll move on, Anna, thank you. very much for everything that you do. I learned quickly when we're in key staff and we're meeting as as executive staff, you can see much of what we do and how we do it and the planning that takes place. It revolves around the goals that we set as a council, and the budget that really is the framework of those goals. And then Anna making sure that we execute them correctly in the ways that are not just directives of the state, but directives of this council. And she does it with very efficient. You can get a piece of data from Anna just like that, and I'm thinking, she's just very well organized. And so, Anna, thank you for all that you do. And that is the mayor's report. Okay, now we'll move on to the common consent agenda. It consists of the 6 items that are before you. Is there any questions on these items, the council?
Mayor, I'd move approval of the common consent agenda.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Taylor.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Barnes. Any discussion on this motion? Okay, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Okay, item number 1 is a review and action on approval of a variance in the cross-section of the sidewalk located at 120 South North County Boulevard for Bonneville Vista Townhomes. Is there any?
Thanks, Mayor. So the street in question is a private street, and our code does, our code requires that private streets follow the same standard for public streets. There's some existing tall trees that are located just north of the development of Bonneville Vistas, and the applicant's concerned that if they install the sidewalk in the standard location, it'll require the removal of the trees. So our engineering staff, in consultation with the city engineer, advised the applicant that they could apply or make the same request to city council for the variance to approve a different cross section where they'll install the sidewalk right next to the curb and gutter, and it will leave the park strip then to move to the back of that. So that's essentially just some background on what this item is.
Well, I know where Councilman Shelton's voting tonight.
Yeah, because you don't like the park strip, you want the curb and gutter. You're a fan of sidewalk curb and gutter.
This is the one, I'm trying to find it in the packet. I had a hard time visualizing it. Was there a map in the packet?
It's
I just
just
passed
off
it?
North County, so you hit 50 South and turn in right there.
Yes, yes.
And nothing's developed on the north of that, but there's development going on the south
South,
and
so
the
The old
west.
Tolman residence, I think.
Okay, can I see that? I did not see that in the packet, but I may have missed. Okay, so they're just taking out, are they taking out the park strip altogether, or?
It will move to the back of it because the property line would have been on the back of the sidewalk otherwise. So essentially, there's a sidewalk will end, there'll be a strip of park strip and then the property line of someone's front lawn.
But you won't be able to notice the difference between the park strip and the front lawn, basically.
No.
So we still, sorry, I jumped in. Stacy.
No, that's basically what I was getting at, like, it's like curb gutter, sidewalk, and then park strip, and then they're front lawn, and then they're setback. Is it residential? Or is it, okay, yeah, residential.
So are we doing an 8-foot park strip, and then do we have a 10-foot easement on top of that 8 foot, so you're going 18 feet into the front yard?
Sorry, say that again?
So the park strip
Oh.
width is 8 feet, is that right?
Yeah,
Yep.
So we're going 8 feet
and then we have
to
10
the front
foot.
yard, and then we have a 10.
5-foot sidewalk?
And you're saying the 10-foot front easement?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
so that's a total
But
of 18 feet into the front yard of these people's.
The property,
That's the side
the
yard.
property in question, the property in question on the north side, it's not individual lots along there, so it wouldn't impact that, I believe. It's the ones to the south that there's some level of where that might be the issue.
I just, going to scale and looking at it and seeing it, I just want to make sure 18 feet is a pretty substantial amount to be going in. I just don't even know if there's a need for a park strip if you already have a 10-foot easement into someone's front yard. I'd rather just say negate why do we need to go 18 feet? I don't see any reason for it, other than the code says 8 feet park strip. But if you already have a 10-foot easement,
I think that part of that, though, would be where the utilities are or where they may go, because you don't want, if the neighboring parcels have the easement farther out, you don't want it to have to curve back in. So if you don't have that full 18 feet on the front, depending on what the neighboring parcels have and where their easements are, it could impact how utilities are run
Yeah,
across the
because
frontage of that
there's
property.
adjacent development that this is matching.
Right.
so you're wondering about, I'm just trying to understand the comment there, Sherlyn, about utilities in the park strip or utilities on the front lawn?
Either way.
It's kind of one and the same though, right? Because the park strip, it's the same width of right-of-way. And so that's why that park strip is just on a different spot on the cross-section.
So we're worried about,
We still have the same right-of-way width
Sure.
and then the same easement. It just is going to look as if it's a larger easement just because of the flip-flop on the cross-section.
I don't know. I think if you had to put a 90 elbow on a utility and turn it south for a little while to be able to get it, but you're able to, I just don't understand the need for it, just for the argument that you may have some utility that has to go straight across. Our utilities all the time have to make turns and elbows and things of that nature. So if I was someone buying that property, I would hope that, I just don't see a need for 18 feet. That's a big,
I think the difference, though, is that that front 8 feet is actually city property. It's not just an easement, because that's part of the city's right-of-way.
well,
And it's a private street, actually, so.
Okay.
So I think that's where some of it is, and where these townhomes are, just looking at I just pulled up the plat. I think because of it being a little bit different, that 10-foot PUE still does exist. It's just where it is a private street. I think there's a little bit of a difference in that
so as
too.
long as it's a 10-foot PUE, I'm totally fine with that. But again, even as a city, why would we want to take 8 feet, call it ours? Someone's going to plant sod in it, maintain it, and we can't collect property tax on it. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I think that would be the case for different ones where this is all private and privately owned. I don't think that's going to be an issue in this case, but I think moving forward, that is something we probably would want to look at.
So maybe I understood incorrectly. You said the park strip was going behind sidewalk. Actually, there won't be any park strip. It's just a 10-foot PUE then at that.
Essentially, because of it being held in private ownership
Thanks for the
with the
clarification.
overall. So apologies, I didn't bring that up up front.
It's just all gonna be grass.
That's what I thought.
And the trees that they're trying to save, yeah. And it hugs along the tree area and then hooks down into 120 a little bit.
I mean, they know what's going on. I mean, they brought it forward for that. 18 feet's excessive. They're back lots except for one. There is that little alley, what would we call that, half street, that goes behind on the north side of the trees. So I don't know. I mean, I agree, Rob, I think it's excessive, but
It sounds like there's not 18 feet. It sounds like there is just 10 feet then. Is that right, Patrick?
Looking at what I have in front of me, yes. There's the 10-foot easement behind all
So
of
there really is
what
no
would be,
planter strip at all.
Behind all the
essentially- which
trees.
what could be common open space as well.
So I'm good with that then. I misinterpreted what was said when he said the planter was going on the backside of the sidewalk.
Just in terms of the cross section, because they have to
but it is.
follow that.
They
It is,
just
but it
said
will be.
that-
It is, but it will be. It's privately held because it's private
Gotcha.
street and everything. So
So there's not a, yeah, so as long as there's only 10-foot PUE.
we don't end up with a piece of city property that we have to maintain that
Yeah.
goes up to someone else's front lawn.
So with that, I'll move to approve the request for variance in the cross-section of the sidewalk to amend the street cross-section which serves Plat D Bonneville Vista Townhomes at 120 South North County Boulevard and authorize the city to sign the variance.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Shelton, second by Councilmember Taylor. Any discussion on this motion? Okay, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Carroll,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes,
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Item number 2 is a review and action on a resolution approving a land use map amendment known as Southam Industrial, located at approximately 300 East, 1700 South. The property proposes to change from shoreline protection designation to the designed industrial land use designation. Any questions on this one? You know what, let me
Want me to
just see,
speak on that
if
or
there's
no?
no questions, we'll just, is there questions from the council?
This is one of those ones where the planning commission minutes were invaluable. So they had two meetings for this thing because they didn't have enough commissioners on the first. Asked all of the right questions and really was unanimous with the exception of one person. And to me, it made complete sense to have that delineating line where the trail is, and I don't know, made great sense to me. I'll make a motion unless someone else has.
Well, I would like to just say
Absolutely,
something.
absolutely.
I mean, reading this, just literally just reading it, I did have a little bit of heartburn about the idea of putting industrial right there on the shoreline. I noticed to the east there, fairly recently, we have put industrial there. I was trying to remember the history of that. Wasn't that fairly recently we changed that to industrial?
Yep.
Trying to remember the
Roderick.
reasons. Oh, Roderick,
yeah.
that's right. So I don't love the idea of having industrial there. I did just pull up like our code to look at what kinds of uses were in the industrial. It's not heavy industrial, if I understand that correctly. It looks like it's limited. Any comments on that, I guess, would help me maybe, because the idea of having like a factory next to the lake would be very hard for me.
And that's probably one that the applicants can speak to a little
Okay.
bit in more detail about their proposed use for it.
But what about our allowed uses?
Our allowed uses?
Yeah, like, because I'm not only concerned when I'm changing the zone, not only concerned about what their use is, but potential uses in the future for that zone.
Yep. So we do have a list of things similar to like plant nurseries and greenhouses that are allowed, accessory advertising signs, truck terminals, parking lots. Our similar uses to planned industrial can also go into that. The planned industrial designation itself is a lot more restrictive than the open I-1. So you still have office buildings, office warehouse, but then there is the chance of a little bit more heavy industrial use, similar to some of the uses that exist to the east of that, like the concrete and
Yes.
crushing
Yes.
uses as well. But if you have a specific question on the use proposed by the applicant, I'm happy to.
You want to hear
let them
from the
speak to
applicant?
that.
I mean, I think I understand what the use is based on what's in the packet, but if I don't.
I think it'd be nice to hear just
Okay.
what their intent is.
Okay.
Bring it forward.
It can change,
They
I
just-
understand,
yeah.
but.
Can you just state your name for the record?
For sure. Good evening. So my name's Gavin Winkle. I'm just representing the property owner. And so is your question on kind of what's proposed there? We don't exactly, have defined plans, but it would be something similar that would, in that area, but at a smaller scale. So a smaller building with some yard space. We've talked with, the existing Southam company there, right? We're still kind of talking with them of they need more space, and so it could be potentially something like that, where it's a small office or a building with more yard space for kind of storage of things. But I think another couple of things to keep in mind are that it is a very long, kind of narrow property. Mm-hmm. We would only be using kind of the front part of that property, right? And it's also hard, like with the zone change or it's kind of surrounded by like buildings already, right? Like on one side you've got, PI1, on the other side you've got I1, and then on the other side it's TSSD who owns that parcel, and it makes it really hard to build anything valuable next to, right, a sewage pump station. Right? It's
Hey,
not-
that's our sewage pump station.
So,
And your clients, by the way.
So, anyways, I think it's a good use for the land. I'm not sure what else, and that's kind of what we talked with the planning commission of like what else could go there given those, how it's locked in there. So any other questions, happy to answer that. Hopefully that gives some context.
Okay.
That was a tough thing, because Jenny Pay brought up some really good points, you know, we give into this, that this goes away, but honestly, what are you going to put in there?
Yeah, and I think my concern is not necessarily like that think it needs to be like a marina, like that's what the M1 is intended for, so I don't know that that's the right designation, but the idea of creating industrial there, and maybe I'm more concerned about some of the heavier industrial uses, and if I change it to that, I can't restrict those at all, although it doesn't sound like you in particular intend to do that, but future users of the land would have the ability to use some of that heavier industrial if it's allowed, whatever is allowed in the code. So I don't know if there's a fix for that at all.
And the southern portion of their property line as well, there's just under 400 feet of a buffer between that and where the actual water level is right now, and that's owned by the state, that gap, that's part of the Utah Lake itself. So there wouldn't be anything right down on the shoreline, but I do understand that it is the very next thing from the shoreline.
I mean, I understand it's next to the trail that's there, right? So that would be a buffer as well.
Yeah, well, the trail would go as it's shown right now with MAG in Utah County and our master plan. It would go across part of the bottom of their project.
Cuts the,
It would. You'd have a little
their
triangular
development
piece.
doesn't go below that.
Right.
Yeah.
If you still have questions, I just have one.
I mean, in my ideal world, I would love to have like trees all along that trail at least, so that it would create like a visual buffer between the lake and the
Still could.
Still could?
Yeah.
How do I make that happen?
Because the
Just on the
trail
trail
comes along
itself?
here, yeah, on the trail itself.
Yeah.
Guess one of my questions is, the shoreline protection, and I just need some help clarifying this, is it an overlay zone or is it a zone in and of itself?
The shoreline protection that's shown to the east of it, or are you just talking in general of the zone?
Well, I'm just looking at the
The
packet.
land use map.
Sorry, I'm looking at the zone.
Zone.
So the land use map, it's a land use, and then there is a shoreline protection zone within that land use.
Right, so it has nothing to do with the shoreline protection overlay zone.
So
Because
as
they
it was
have one
described to me by the city engineer, it's areas that were historically below the FEMA floodplain line, and that's where that was. If it was above that, it could potentially, above that elevation, it may have potentially fallen outside of that. It is also used to preserve some of the shoreline. So depending on what way it needs to be utilized.
Just trying to
both
see
options.
how that works, because it seems like this would be, and this almost goes, depending upon the elevation of the lake, it could be underneath the lake.
Underneath the lake.
I mean, I guess, for me, I don't understand the shoreline protection zone. When I look at it on our zone map, it's nowhere near the harbor, right?
It generally goes all along this, in certain parts, it goes all along the southern portion of the city. The land use, there are proposals in the past that have been approved for development within the shoreline land use, but where the zoning did not match the land use,
No,
and
I get it.
that's what we've been.
And part of what I think maybe Councilmember Carroll's getting to is if we extended that shoreline protection zone, overlay zone, underneath the industrial zone, would that not meet what you're trying to accomplish? Because the overlay zone says anything underneath this overlay has these further restrictions because it is on the shoreline, but I don't know if that makes sense just with the way our zone mapping is. It doesn't look like our shoreline protection zone has been very well thought out and put into play down by the marine. I don't mean to be that.
Not on that side, for sure.
No, but that's the honest situation right now
Sure.
with that.
And so I think maybe there is some merit in taking a look at that and saying, and I don't know if it's that, you got a long skinny piece, right? Maybe that overlay protection zone goes on that
Just the
bottom
southern
part
portion.
of it. It says, okay, we're gonna protect the lake on this side. I
From the
don't
trail
think,
south. From the
What's
trail
that?
south.
I'm not exactly sure where the trail is from what I'm looking at.
It's
but-
not, it's not shown on that right now because it's just a land use change. You can see it on the adjacent parcel. You can kind of figure out where it would go from there. But it hasn't, because it's a zone change and a land use change, it hasn't been dedicated yet, so it's literally just a line on on our master
So
plan.
this is where so this is the land use here, and then if you were to transition over to
The proposal for it.
no, the actual zoning, our overlay zone does not match our land use map. And that's where I feel like and I hope it's okay to be very blunt, we probably failed as a city, is saying, hey, the shoreline protection from I'm looking at on the zoning map, man, why doesn't that go all the way along the shoreline? Why doesn't that overlay, when I read the overlay zoning, it's there to say, hey, you can't build below the elevation line, right? So this long skinny lot, maybe that southern portion, wherever it may be, I don't know, it sounds like you don't plan on building down there anyway from the comments and the planning commission meeting in here. Maybe that's a way to add that protection in there without just doing a full-on rezone.
So
I think that's
you're
the
saying
purpose of
you're
the
saying a
overlay
partial rezone of the lot?
So
Maybe
then-
I misunderstand. An overlay zone goes over the top of an existing zone, correct?
So,
So
like,
we
that's-
change M1 to an industrial use, but then wherever we feel like that protection needs to be at, maybe it doesn't even be right up on the road where you got this long skinny lot. Maybe towards the road, we don't worry so much about that on the industrial side, but as it moves closer to the lake, you could take and put that overlay protection there that would give that protection to it.
Yeah. And that would be more on the zone on the next item rather than the land use, but
Sure,
the
but I'm
land
just
use, the
talking-
land use should probably then stay shoreline protection, because I think that's where the challenge in the past has been, and what we're trying to promote right now is making sure that the land use informs the zoning. That hasn't always been the case, that we've got zoning that's way out of whack with
Well, and I just
with
look at
land
our
use.
zone, sorry, I'm jumping staff back and forth, but the map you just had up had a whole swath
Yep.
of the land use of shoreline protection where it's mainly industrial now, so I don't know the idea of changing it. You know, when you look at that going all the way through, we haven't really updated that as well. I see the land use and the zone item kind of together, so I apologize for bringing them at the same time, but I thought that might be helpful for what Councilmember Carroll's concern was, is if we do that overlay zone where we feel like we want those protections and keep the industrial on the north end.
And I'm a little confused with the term overlay. I thought that an overlay was slightly different. I don't know, because often we'll talk about an overlay as like, you know, we have our zoning map, but then sometimes we add an additional overlay, right? And those aren't usually on the zoning map.
They should be.
They
That
should
we,
be.
we should have it as an additional layer
Okay.
that can be turned on and off, because if it's an overlay and it's shown on the map, but it's not a different layer, you can't see,
Yeah,
you
right.
can't see
Yeah,
what the
it's
underlying
confusing.
layer is meant to be compared
Yeah,
to the
it's
overlay.
confusing.
But that's something that we can do on a GIS side of things. That wouldn't be an issue. It would just be an additional input that we'd need to put into the program.
I apologize that I didn't look this up before I got here, but there, on the zoning map that you had up, there was actually a shoreline protection zone. And in that, is that a specific zone then,
Yeah.
too? And in that, is that like nothing can be built? Is that what that?
That's the idea of the zoning. It is to preserve certain areas. It could be utilized for wetlands as well.
Oh, sure.
I don't think it's been utilized to the extent that it should have, and this is where we're running into issues in the southern part of the city where just historically things have not followed the process they probably should have.
So the map that's there is different from the one I'm looking online, so I don't know if I've got a
So
different.
that's the zoning map, the one that you were probably looking at that has that large chunk across the
No,
bottom.
mine's a zoning map as well. It's
Oh,
Yeah, that's
on
the zoning.
arcigs.com. Maybe I've got different layers, but I see the shoreline protection zone really is only two. That one there on the left-hand side of M1 that the cursor's on right now, but it doesn't show the one on I1. So I don't know why mine would look different, but I guess when I'm looking at this, and this is, I apologize to the applicant, this is more of just an overall philosophy. We as a city and as a staff probably ought to look at that whole shoreline and have it really clearly defined down there with that overlay zone as it continues to come in. So I don't think this is gonna be the only applicant that's gonna come in and say, I'm looking at doing something with this property, right? And it matches our zone use map at that point in time. So,
Sorry, if I can make a comment. I think from what we talked about in the planning commission and what I've read kind of in existing documents is that shoreline protection zone, or sorry, the land use of shoreline protection is not, it just means it's a floodplain, right? That you shouldn't build there unless you've brought the elevation of the land up. It should only be limited to things that can be flooded, right? Not residential dwellings, but it can be, other things that reasonably could be flooded without major impacts. So I think there's land obviously that is set aside to to protect the shoreline, but I just want to make sure we're not confusing the two of by changing the zoning or the land use, you're not unprotecting the shoreline. Right? It's just meaning we want to do something inside of a floodplain.
And I don't need to, we have a pretty extensive shoreline protection zone, and it talks a lot about different things, protecting certain things within there. I just think if that is a concern of protecting that shoreline, we really as a city ought to get serious about it and put that overlay zone where it needs to be.
Sure.
Actually, if that map that they had up before was the actual map, I don't think it even touches your property, which then I would say we already have something in there, but now I'm confused of looking at two different maps.
So that is how what was showing there is how the property is. There's another parcel about 400 feet wide that extends from ours up to the shore that is owned by the city already.
Yeah, so right there, yours is
it's like the long
that
skinny
blue one right there. So if you look at it, that shoreline protection zone actually cuts off just before your property, right?
Yeah, and so, but it kind of cuts off right in the middle there. And I think that was something that the Planning Commission brought up, is that they're saying the land use between M1, or our property, and the above it, I think design industrial, was not contiguous, but it's because that line cuts right in the middle of that road. Anyway, so I think for all intents and purposes,
I'm supportive of going industrial. I just think that if we're being serious about shoreline protection, then let's get serious about it, put it on our maps, match our land use map, and let's make it very clear, because I think this is going to be a continual discussion even after this meeting.
Yeah, and I think similar to what you did on that map with the shoreline protection that cuts into that I-1, where it would make sense on the, just below that property of that strip there.
But I think that's something that staff has to come back with and say, here's the reason why this should be delineated here, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
Well, let's come forward, Liz.
I want to clarify just a few things. Elizabeth Phelan, we own the property to the east of this property. So where the trail jots up, that's being dropped down, so it's actually in the shoreline protection. But I want to bring up the land use map. Can you shrink that so you can see all the shoreline protection? Shrink it down so you can see everything to the west, please. Okay. So you see that shoreline protection. You see how many houses are in that shoreline protection? That shoreline protection also goes into the Roderick buildings that are already built. So everything that's green is stated as a shoreline protection. But if you actually come down to the property, when you said trees, my gut turned big time, because if you go down there, every single tree is full of midge and gnats, and they are terrible, absolutely terrible. We have abatement come down for mosquitoes on the property, but we also have hired Accurate Pest Control, which is an American Fork company. They come down. Roderick has also hired them. They come down and spray twice a week, every single week for Roderick in all of their bay doors, because there are so many midge, and it's because of the trees. We cut down the huge maple tree that we had on our property where our office is, because you could not walk to the front door without being attacked by the midge. And the closer you get to the lake, the thicker they are. They look like literally hurricanes and volcanoes. Okay, so these tornadoes, they're terrible. So the shoreline protection where the trail is, where their property meets. So Dave, one of you scroll back into where the southern property is. So Winkle's property there, that's the trail on the bottom of the property, and it will all go along the shoreline. As far as protecting that shoreline, a wall goes up. We're in the process of designing a beautiful place where people can fish off the shoreline, off the trail, all those things. Them building at the front and having a building and then having storage space is going to be no different than everything that's to the east. Roderick's on the property to the west that butts up to TSSD. And if you look at the zoning, so this is the land use. If you put the zoning in there, it falls to an M1. I need you to know what is able to be in an M1. It includes gas stations. It includes all of those things that could be just as damaging to the shoreline as having a building and outdoor storage. So I, as a neighbor to the east of them, support them to build exactly what is already in there in the I-1. And I also want to bring up that in American Fork City, there's a total of 72 acres of industrial property, and it is right there. That is the only place that we have industrial property. And in order for American Fork City to grow as a city, you have to have industrial property to supply concrete, to take the concrete, to take the dirt, to supply the dirt. Those things need to be in our city, but not in our city. We are sit on the very east and southern border of American Fork City. And the freeway's right there. We don't come into the city streets, go right to the freeway and hit our towns that we need to hit. So I support them as neighbors to the east, but I just wanted to clarify that shoreline protection, so where it's going green up at the top where it meets the purple, those lots and buildings are already in there. So the shoreline protection, really, it was dropped with no, I mean, this back in the day in history. And we've done a study with our property, and you can go back and look at the lakeside maps. Back to 1958, the water was all the way out, and then it comes in and comes out, comes in and comes out. It moves, but it's never been higher than what it is right now. And we do everything we can to make sure that we're not encroaching. There's no way we would fill our property when the water's up. That's just wrong. We have morals and ethics, and we use those. So I believe that the Winkles would, again, put up a wall, support having that trail there, and the trail is the border for the shoreline protection. If you come down there, it's not really going to be somewhere that somebody wants to walk. I'm just saying, because I don't want to be there. Like, it's not a beautiful shoreline. It's really not. Where it's Utah Lake, and it, like I said, it's full of midge and gnats. It's bad. It's super bad with that. So.
And I think that illustration, when you had them zoom out and go over, I think that's where I feel like our land use needs to match our zoning, and we need to get serious about the shoreline protection.
Yeah, because the shoreline protection doesn't make any sense
do a
now.
whole lot for the applicant. I mean, if the zone map they pulled up actually has the shoreline protection, it doesn't touch their property, I'm happy to move forward with it, but request staff to go through and let's look at.
Yeah, that shoreline
matching this
protection
all up
matches
and
all the
cleaning
way
it up.
over to the residential areas. Those subdivisions are already built right on shoreline protection. I mean, how do you undo that?
Well, it's not, the land use is different. I think the zoning was changed without the land use being updated, and that's the
Yeah,
problem.
for sure.
I think that we just need the land use and the zoning to match up, and there's probably just a little bit of cleanup work to be done. But with that, I'll go ahead and make
Just
a
real quick
motion.
on the motion, could I just clarify? This is not going from the shoreline protection land use, it's going from the M1, the marina. So in your motion, if you can say from the M1
Wait,
to
This
the,
is-
no, the
this is
land use
the-
is shoreline protection.
No,
This is the
that's the
land use.
This is
zoning.
the land use. We're not in zone yet.
I'll go ahead and I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution approving the land use map amendment located at approximately 300 east, 1700 south from the shoreline protection land use designation to the design industrial land use designation.
A second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Shelton and a second by Councilmember Taylor. Any discussion on this motion?
I'll just say that I'm going to support this motion as well. I feel a little bit like conflicted still with I guess what I'm really trying to say is I would like the city to take a comprehensive look at the shoreline in general, and maybe even with other cities. I think that needs to be something that's bigger than just us on what needs to be done to preserve shoreline.
Lehigh just changed their transportation master plan.
Yes,
to
they did.
have a,
Yes, they did.
road
Put a
going through
road
there,
right
so.
through the lake would be one option for preserving your shoreline if you want. So, I like I said, I feel like we're kind of in a pickle at this point, but at the same time, it's still something that is of concern to me that I would love to dive in and get a little bit more information about that.
We're in such a unique situation, though, and it's not a good one. It's just like the front runner station coming in. We didn't have a choice. TSSD is down there. TSSD's been down there for years. It's dumping in the lake for years. All of those
What?
that
They don't dump in the lake? What is it?
foul, I mean, that's what we have on shoreline to, the west of or east of our boat harbor. And I would love to find a way to be able to, I'm excited to see what the felines are going to be able to do to have a spot to fish in down there. You come with your own net.
wear a really long sleeves and have all of the insect repellent
Yeah.
possibly
Oh
available.
my
We'll do
gosh,
it.
that's
Yeah.
my nightmare.
I mean, it's incredible, but it's all along that lake. My son-in-law and daughter just bought a home on the very south border, south of the TOD. And I pull in there in my white truck, and they happen to have a street light. It's gray when I come out. I mean, no, literally, it is gray. And bless their hearts, they bought a bug zapper. What are you gonna do with that? What are you gonna do with that? So they emptied it after 30 minutes and then put it in the garage. But it's just, I don't know. We got a really tough thing down there. We've got to somehow make hay, but we're not going to change the way things are with the TSSD. I mean, that is what it is. I remember JH talking about all of the peat that's been down there and just been created year after year, and what breeds down there and what comes out of there. I mean, just don't know how we're going to do much.
Well, I think this would be a great broader discussion. I mean, I won't be here to be able to see that through.
Oh,
but I
Rob
think-
will invite you down.
I think if you guys wanted to take a look at that and say, let's look at our land use map and our, shoreline protection, I think that's a great work session discussion item.
Some of that protection is view shed, just what you're seeing from the lake while you're on the lake, if you're on a boat.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's part of my concern.
No one gets on the lake anymore because it's
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. I'm going to call for a vote. Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Okay, item number 3 is review and action on an ordinance approving a zone change known as Southam Industrial located approximately 300 east, 1700 south. On approximately 4.99 acres, the property proposes to change from M1 zone to the industrial to the I1 zone.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed zone map amendment located approximately 300 east, 1700 south, American Fork, Utah, from the Marine 1 zone to the industrial zoning designation.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Shelton,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Taylor. Any discussion on this motion? Okay, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Item number 4A is a review and action on an ordinance approving a commercial site plan known as the Freeman Site Plan located at 19 North, 900 West. The commercial site plan will be on approximately 1.23 acres and will be in the planned commercial, the GC2 zone. We'll have you sit there if there's any questions on this one, council.
This, the one that's over west, right?
Yeah. East of Hearts,
Yeah.
west of the park and ride.
I'm kind of wishing there was a lot by the marina now.
Yeah, you got a tricky parcel, is that what you're?
Oh, yeah. Well, all those gnats, it sounds like a good place for
Yeah.
business.
Well, you have other things in your area though that'll be equally as inviting, so.
Any questions for staff or the applicant? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'd move to adopt the ordinance approving the commercial site plan and variance request for 900 West to be, wait, are we on that? 58 feet wide, located at 19 North 900 West in the designed commercial GC2 zone, with instructions that the city recorder to withhold publishing the ordinance subject to all conditions identified in the public record associated with the November 8th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Taylor,
Second?
second by Councilmember Shelton. Any discussion on this motion? Okay, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Okay, 4B is a review and action on approval of a final plat known as Lakeland Industrial Park Plat B, located at approximately 1700 south, 400 east. The final plat will be for approximately 10.24 acres and will be in the I-1 zone. Sure, we have the applicant here. Okay, hold on. I'll just want to make sure we're here. Is there any questions that the council has for staff or the applicant?
Mayor, I make a motion to approve the proposed final plat located approximately 1700 south, 400 east, American Fork City in the I-1 industrial zone with instructions to record withhold recording of the plat subject to conditions identified in the public record associated with the November 8th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Shelton,
Second.
second by Councilmember Barnes. Any discussion on this motion? Okay, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Barnes,
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll,
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Item number 5 is a review and action on a resolution approving the declaration of vehicles to be surplus and disposed of.
Mayor, I move to adopt the resolution approving the declaration of vehicles to be surplus and disposed of.
Okay. I have a motion by Councilmember Carroll.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Shelton. Any discussion on this motion?
I think that 2014 Ford Taurus has got some life in it. Stacy, if you're looking for something for your daughter to drive, that might be something that's really nice.
Which one used to be the cemetery truck? Is it the 03?
It's not even on the list.
I don't know if they
We already did that one.
have half tons up
Did we
there.
already have a motion?
Yeah, we have a motion
I'll second.
and a second. Who made the motion?
I did.
You did? Second by Councilmember Taylor, and I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Item number 6 is a review and action on a resolution approving an amendment to the interlocal cooperative agreement with Utah County for substance misuse prevention services and communities that care prevention model. This has been a real asset to our city. We have a great director, great people that she works with.
Mayor, I'd move to approve the resolution authorizing the mayor to sign the interlocal agreement with Utah County for substance misuse prevention services and the communities that care prevention model.
We have a motion by Councilmember Taylor,
Second.
second by Councilmember Barnes. Any discussion on this motion? Okay, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Okay, item number 7. Do I have a motion to adjourn? A motion by Councilmember Shelton,
Second.
second by Councilmember Barnes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, stand adjourned.